As of March 23, 2022, we will no longer receive ad revenue for any video on this channel, even though YouTube still sells advertising on it. The reason, as we've been told, is because we are a channel that presents historical content as opposed to original content. We refuse to be blacked out. We need your support. Please buy Reelblack merchandise from the Reelblack store, make a donation through PayPal or Cash App, or by joining our Patreon so that we can have the resources necessary to keep the channel growing. Please join our mailing list by sending an email to realblackinc@live.com and follow us on social media at Reelblack so that you can stay informed of future projects created outside of this platform. Reelblack 2 is our backup YouTube channel that carries new original content plus classics from the Reelblack Vault that will be monetized. We ask that you also subscribe there. Thank you. Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Reelblack podcast. Welcome. Waiting for the room to fill up before we start playing the podcast. So this is pre-recorded, but we're going to be monitoring the chat live, right? So any thoughts that you have, feel free to include them in the chat. We will pop them up on the screen because I'm here live, but we're playing back a video that we recorded on Saturday for the topic. It runs about 2.5 hours. So, pack a lunch. Feel free to come in and out, enjoy things. Welcome our new mod, Voyeur 44. He's got the wrench. I've got the wrench. Chris has got the wrench, and we'll get right into it. So one thing I should say is, if you make a donation during the podcast, we will definitely give you a shout out on the screen and all that. As it says right here. Wow, my hand is really big tonight. Proceeds from tonight will go directly towards preserving Charles Wood's Black memorabilia collection. As mentioned earlier, we've been demonetized, right? So we can't even do the cash, the super chats. That we've been prohibited from that. So the only way we can raise money is through PayPal and through Cash App. So if you make a donation in the next 2.5 hours, that money will go directly to Charles Woods to help him preserve his collection, which he's maintained a storage unit basically. And other than that, I see no, it's not money coming in yet. Salutations, fam. So this was a great conversation that me, Charles Woods, and Jason Clue had the other night. And it needs no explanation. We'll get right into it, but feel free to do some things in the chat. We'll get thumbs up, numbers up, and away we go. I'm going to disappear. I'm going to turn the sound down and we'll get started. Thanks for watching.
We're kind of trying to figure out the best way to describe what this theme is, this topic is, but the whole thing is, what it is speaking truth to power, and how there's a double standard. There's a definite double standard. And the reason for the double standard is that, as I said once before, we have to look at information and how it works in this context of white supremacy, in this system where certain people are large and in charge, and they want to stay as such.
Question for you guys before you guys leave. I was thinking when I was on my way over here, I was wondering why I haven't gotten a question from you guys about the Jerry Jones photo. But when the Kyrie thing was going on, you guys were quick to ask us questions about that.
Okay.
Hold on. And I don't even want you guys to say nothing. When I watched Kyrie talk, and he says, I know who I am, but I want to keep the same energy when we're talking about my people and the things that we've been through. And that Jerry Jones photo is one of those moments that our people, black people, have been through in America.
Hey everybody, this is Mike, and you're watching the Reelblack podcast. I'm joined once again by my friend on the other side of the pond, Jason Clue, 21 Rules of Blackness. Make sure you pick up the book. And I'm Talking Black podcast, Mr. Charles Woods. Big news, LeBron speaking up this past week led to this this topic for our podcast, which I think is going to have timeless value. Charles, can you set us up for what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, right now the subject of conversation is, as you've just shown, LeBron questioning the media why they didn't ask him about the Jerry Jones photo. What happened to the energy, or why wasn't there any energy in that question? The question was never posed. His question is, why not? When Kyrie Irving was the subject of being someone who posted something that they considered anti-Semitic, they went after Kyrie to no end. They punished him severely. He was demonized. It was something that's lasted more than 2 weeks. He was suspended by the Nets, and they told him he needed to apologize. People felt his apology was cryptic, and a number of people were talking about, they were asked, a number of athletes were asked, what did you think? A number of people spoke out on it. Initially, here's the key thing. Initially, most people, a lot of people, they went the safe way. Oh, it's anti-Semitic. You don't go there. I mean, recently we had David Chappelle do the Saturday Night Live thing. And he's saying, hey, Kyrie and now Ye, who formerly Kanye, as Chappelle said, there's two things you don't say if you want to survive: the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing is, LeBron said, but here we are learning about Jerry Jones, even though it was years ago. There's a picture of him around 57 where he's part of a group and they're trying to stop blacks from entering a school. Why were you there? And the answer that I think a lot of people are memeing and having issues with is that he said he was only 14 at the time, and he was just curious what was going on. But the bottom line is they feel he got a pass, whereas Kyrie did not.
Yeah, they did not give him the third degree about and try to get him to apologize even. I mean, he didn't apologize for being there, certainly. He just said it was a long time ago and I'm a different person now, or that kind of thing. And that brings up the whole concept of cancel culture. Should people be have their feet held to the fire for things that happened years ago that the general public is just discovering, or should we explore these things with greater scrutiny? I don't know, Jason. I mean, what's your take on this? I know some of this is new information to you, but
well, there definitely is a double standard. That's for sure. I see it all the time. In fact, with the World Cup that's going on now, I know you guys don't really follow what you call soccer, but as we speak, the World Cup's going on. It's taking place in Qatar, which is a Muslim country, as you may know, and there's been a lot of it's been scrutinized quite a lot because some things are outlawed in Qatar, and apparently they've got a bad human rights record. So a lot of people have been protesting about that. And a lot of teams have gone there and have been protesting about some of the things they're not happy with about Qatar. And you think to yourself, in all the other countries which has hosted the World Cup previously, I don't remember them ever wanting to take this moral high ground on how the country should change its, its evil ways. Yeah, I've never seen that before. When anything like that's come up before, like in another country, people will say, "Oh, just get on with it and play football. What's that got to do with football?" Is what they'll say. What's that got to do with soccer? Is what they'll say, right? Whereas they're pushing this agenda so hard with Qatar. They really, really want you to understand how bad Qatar is, and it's and again, it's that double standard narrative, and so I'm seeing it every time I watch one of these games. They push this narrative. So I'm very familiar with how it works and the energy which they put in when it's something that relates to which is on script. Let's put it that way. If it's on script and it's on theme, then they'll push it. If it's not on script and not on theme, then it won't get any airplay. So in that situation with Jerry Jones, they don't, it's not something they really care about. Yeah. So him saying, "Oh, it was a long time ago, I can't even remember." Yeah. No, just accept that. Yeah. Just accept. Oh, okay, fair enough. Move on with the next one. Whereas
so there's a double standard. I agree. There's a double standard. Can you speak to that, Charles?
Well, yeah, it's what was fascinating about this whole thing is that you said this has other ancillary issues connected, and for me, it made me think of my power paradigm. And yes, and what the power paradigm for me is, if you want to maintain control, you want to maintain the status quo, you have to be in control of politics. As far as occupation is concerned, you have to be in the seat of power. You have to occupy the seat of power. Wealth, you have to have enormous wealth. You have to have an abundance of things that are desperately needed by the world at large. Economics is your way of controlling the production, the consumption, and the distribution of the products. Now, the rhetoric is a large part of this piece. The rhetoric deals with the press, the media. You control the media, you control the narrative. And if you control the narrative, you have what comes out in the media and the press. You are indoctrinating, inculcating people's way of thinking. You're influencing people's way of thinking so that you're manufacturing the consent of the governed.
That's interesting. So the first one's politics, you said, Charles. So rule of the people. So you want to just break that down a bit more for me to get my head around?
Well, what's interesting here, LeBron brought up Kyrie. Politics, where does that bring us to what's going on right now? Mm-hmm. What's the last piece of the election process here in America? That's the Senate race between Warnock and Herschel Walker. Politics is number one. You'll have a lot of people say, as far as we'll look at Walker. Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't mean to disrupt you. I mean, I was just playing underneath.
Okay. We look at Walker, they bring him in. It's obvious this guy hasn't got a clue. He hasn't got from what we see, any sense of strong morality or integrity. But they want him to win that position. So they get a black man. He's their black man. He's very popular over there in Georgia. Black man against another black man to make it look like it's not racial. But the thing is, the race has a different context now because the Democrats were able to maintain the Senate 50-50. If Warnock wins, that'll give us 51 Democrats. That is better than where we're at now, where we have 50-50, and the only difference is Vice President Harris having that deciding vote. But the 51 means there's less of an opportunity for Joe Manchin or Christian Sinema to hold up the works based on how they see things, and if they're not in agreement with what Biden wants to do and the majority of the Democrats want to do. But the whole thing is, when we look at politics, people have to understand that when you control the politics, you're able to rule the people, make the laws according to what you think is best for the people. Remember, the Supreme Court, as it exists right now, favors the conservatives. And as a consequence of people not realizing the power of their vote, you see, we no longer have in place Roe versus Wade. And that has hurt so many women.
So, we're speaking, if you're just tuning in, you're watching the Reelblack 21 Rules of Blackness podcast with Talking Black co-host Charles Woods. We're dissecting this concept of the double standard in free speech and the rise of cancel culture as it specifically relates to the Kyrie Irving discussion, but it also exists in history. And from a Black perspective, can you speak to this pattern that we've seen this before, haven't we?
It's
Charles.
It's nonstop. It's, as they say, history repeats itself. We've never really resolved anything. We just make certain incremental change. And then there's always an attempt by those who don't like the change to make changes to the change. Okay? So if you get, let's say, the 13th Amendment, where they're abolishing slavery, they'll come up with other ways to say, okay, blacks are free, but free to do what? We're going to make it tough for them to exercise their freedom. They were free, but they weren't allowed to vote. They weren't really recognized as citizens. So we had to have what they called the Reconstruction Amendments, 13, 14, and 15, to make things even better. But just look at what happened in when the Supreme Court, once again, said that voting, there was no need to have all of these things in place to make voting easier, because racism no longer existed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and once again, that's the Supreme Court overturning
Right.
What was gained by the Civil Rights
Right.
Voting Act.
Well, let me know if this is apples and oranges, but I'm just trying to get a sense of the pattern, the history of cancel culture. This is nothing new, as you say. I mean, I know it goes back to, say, Paul Robeson.
Well, if we're talking about athletes, if we just focus on athletes,
Okay.
sports figures who are addressing the issues that are going on in life, and they're saying, I'm not just an athlete. Don't just see me as an athlete. I'm a human being first. I just happen to be a basketball player, football player, and as a human being, I want to express what I see is wrong with this system. Paul Robeson, he spoke out against the system. It hurt his career. He paid for it. He mentored Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte, but he had to tell them, for your own well-being, it's not good for you to be seen with me. And Paul Robeson was he took a big hit.
Right.
We have some footage where we'll see other sports figures. I mean, people aren't going to forget what happened in the Olympics. We had Carlos, and they're raising their hand.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, when they spoke out against the racism. Cassius Clay, when he talked about he wasn't going to be used to go fight a war he didn't believe in. They paid heavily. More recently, who are we talking about? Look what happened when Colin Kaepernick took a stand,
Mm-hmm.
or took a kneel. And he hasn't been reinstated in football. We had a guy named Craig Hodges after the Chicago Bulls, when they won the championship. He took the opportunity. Michael Jordan didn't go with the rest of the team members, but it's a tradition after a team wins a championship, they're invited to the White House. At the time, it was President Bush. He invites them to the White House, and Hodges goes in and he's dressed in African garb. And he can't hand a letter to Bush, but he hands it to one of Bush's people. And the letter was addressing the issues Hodges had problems with, the conditions in America. He feels, as a consequence of that, he was blackballed. He sued, and it was an unsuccessful lawsuit. We come back to more recently with Kyrie, and as I said, Kyrie took a big hit because he posted on his platform this film, Hebrews to Negroes, which is also based on a book of the same name. It was looked at as being anti-Semitic. Kyrie caught hell for that. But it's interesting, not many people, are you aware that a lot of people felt, how come they went after Kyrie, but they didn't go after Bezos and Amazon?
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is, some people aren't aware of the fact that,
Well, just to be clear, Amazon and Bezos they're just one of the places where you can find the movie. They're essentially the distributor of the film.
Distributor, yes. But the thing is, Kyrie saying, I didn't say one thing about the film, go see it. I just put.
He could have been condemning it but no one even bothered to even ask the question. Yeah.
In other words, he didn't offer an opinion on it one way or the other.
Mm.
It was just put on his platform. But the thing is, they're saying, how was he able to see it? Okay. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, how many people are aware Shaquille O'Neal, as a black movie owner, a black theater owner, he showed the film. One of his theaters showed the film. Are you aware of that?
No, I didn't know you owned theaters, but yeah. Okay.
Okay. But the thing is, there's a difference between a Shaquille O'Neal and a Kyrie Irving. And Shaquille O'Neal, even at one time, said Kyrie is an idiot. Okay. But the thing is, there's a difference between Shaquille and Kyrie. There's a difference between Kyrie and Jerry Jones. because the whole thing is we're talking about images, okay? And the one thing that I wanted to make clear in this piece is that we have to look at how the system works. It's all about that power paradigm. The system works where the people who are large and in charge, they know that for them to maintain the status quo, they have to be in full control of the politics, the occupation, the wealth, the economics, and the rhetoric. And anything that criticizes the establishment, anything that criticizes the system as we know it, anything that is critical of the status quo, they're going to shut it down. Kyrie was a definitive attempt to shut him down, okay? The motion pictures, when I speak about technology, motion pictures we get, it's all about propaganda. It's all about putting information, as I said once before, putting information out that is information that maintains the system as we know it, does not come into making it weak, does not come into having it where it can be attacked as being wrong. It's a system that the lie that is propagated in the rhetoric part, the media part, is that there's this belief that we are inclusive. This is a melting pot. This is a multicultural society. That's a big lie. That's what we call the illusion of inclusion. And from a Marxist perspective, Marx said that the most dangerous system on the face of the earth is the one we have right here in America. And why did he say it's the most dangerous? It's because it gives this illusion that the people of an oppressed class can rise and become members of the dominant class and exist equally. That's BS.
Okay, I'm going to move this
Well, it's
slide
a
over.
dream, isn't it? That's the whole point. That's what they call the American dream.
Yeah,
Which is
the American dream. But the American dream is always, as it's been said, as Malcolm X said, for certain people, it's an American dream. For people of color, it's the American nightmare.
So, Jason, I definitely want to keep included. I mean, occupation. What does how does that relate to what's going on with Kyrie and LeBron and Jerry Jones? The double standard.
Well, occupation brings us right back to the fact that when we talk about politics, politics is being put in a position where you're going to influence how the country is ruled, how it's governed. Occupation means that you are in a position of power. You sit in a position of power. For example, through politics, Trump, he was able to nominate 3 judges to the Supreme Court. And Trump was not even elected with a majority of the votes, okay? And how he was elected is another way the system puts in place ways to protect people who do not really have ideas that are best for this country. See, the people who want to rule this country, this predatory capitalistic society, they are people who have no regards for people. It's all about power. And through power, you increase your power, you increase your wealth. you increase your position to be in the seat of power, you see, and you control the economics. And by controlling the economics, you make sure that, hey, when people work, you have, let's say, Senator Warren or Bernie Sanders, where they're saying that people need to have health care. We shouldn't be paying exorbitant amounts of money to send people to college. We should have people who are making a living wage. Okay? These kind of ideas are not the ideas of the people who want to rule this country. And the people who want to rule this country, they don't give a damn about putting someone up there to run for elective offices who think about the people. No, they're just putting in people who are going to follow the party line. You listen to Herschel Walker, as the former President Obama said, this guy hasn't got a clue on what he could do if he became the senator, on how he can improve people's lives. You got Warnock, who is the incumbent, but he was not elected to a 6-year term. He, as an incumbent, he helped to get legislation to help bring down the cost of insulin. Okay? Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, you know, through politics, right now they just voted on giving some kind of legislation to put in the codification on. The big fear was something that was said when Roe versus Wade was overturned. Mm-hmm. Our boy, Clarence Thomas, said, well, maybe we need to look at some other things. Interracial marriage and this whole idea of homosexuality. So same-sex marriage. Same-sex marriage and all of that. Biden just signed the legislation. It was passed by, it was, we got some Republicans to vote on it too. It's not fully protecting these things, but it gives it more strength where it can't be shut down. The same thing, they want people through politics, we want people in office who can help codify laws that'll protect women who, for health reasons, have to have abortion. I mean, there are horror stories of women who needed abortions, couldn't get it because of the laws that existed, how the certain states immediately went overboard to say after a certain amount of weeks, you can't abort a child and whatnot, at the risk of these women losing their lives. We got these kind of people who want to put in this draconian legislation. This is abominable.
What the sense, what's going on in 2022, end of 2022 with this cancel culture, or the state of American politics?
Well, the way cancel culture works is, number one, this whole thing came about, you know, you've heard the term culture wars. Culture wars, it relates to extremism, nationalism, okay? Mm-hmm. They just did a study, and most people are saying we have a heightened sense of fear now. People, the increase in hate crimes is devastating. When they poll people, what are your fears? People say, oh, you look at, this is a gun culture also in America. People being shot down. Anti-Semitism, anti-Black things are happening. People are scared. People responded. This fear from the extremism, white nationalism that exists in this country. People are scared to death. But when they ask white Republicans, what do they fear? What do they think is the biggest threat? You know what they said?
Foreigners, immigrants, black people.
No, they saw themselves as the most likely victims of all this.
Mm.
This is all a consequence of who controls the rhetoric, the media. We talk about Fox, the Murdoch piece, that power, controlling that press, that media platform. You look at what happens with a CNN. I don't know if you're aware of it. CNN is the person now in charge of a guy named Light. He's making all kinds of changes to CNN. They just had a number of people being fired. Are you aware of that, Mike?
No, I hadn't heard that part.
So they made a change. Don Lemon, you know Don Lemon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they knocked him off his nightly show. They said he wasn't getting any ratings. His ratings were in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
They moved him to the morning, and they put him with two women, Caitlin Collins and Poppy Hollow. That's not doing well. But one of the people, Don Lemon had a 2-hour spot at night. One of the hours was given to Jake Tapper. Now here's the rub. They were thinking about maybe they would get rid of Don Lemon. A number of the people that this new guy who's in charge, he was going after, are people he said were too obvious in their demeanor, in their questioning as supposed journalists going after Trump. Don Lemon was one of them. Who's one of the guys? The guy they put to replace Don Lemon at night? Jake Tapper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know who Jake Tapper made no bones. He's proud of the fact that he gave this president a hard time. You know who that was?
Jake Tapper gave Obama a hard time.
You're damn right. You're damn right. But you didn't hear that. You don't hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing is they're looking at this so-called supposed to be liberal TV. See, Fox makes no bones about what their agenda is. They do their thing, and they get their ratings. Their ratings are stronger than MSNBC and CNN combined. Okay, but a Tucker Carlson, Hannity, Laura Ingraham, these people, we know where they're coming from. I can't even watch 1 second of these suckers. Okay.
That's a good point. That's a good place to cue this in. And then we can comment on that. Jason, have you seen this before?
There are many wonderful qualities to Herman Cain, but to be honest with you, I think liberals are too dense to see them. All they see is conservative black man. Look at how they go after Allen West. Look at how they go after Michael Steele. I mean, all of them with wonderful qualities. I mean, that's why our blacks are so much better than their blacks. To become a black Republican, you don't just roll into it. You're not going with the flow. You have fought against probably your family members, probably your neighbors. You have thought everything out. And that's why we have very impressive blacks in our party.
Very impressive blacks in our party. Yeah, our blacks are better than their blacks. That's that is yeah.
Well, that brings up a good point, though. I mean, they tend to use us against us. Isn't that true, Charles?
Well, that's another important thing that came to my mind behind all of this. As I said before, you know, they'll go after Kyrie, but Shaq will get a pass. Okay? And Shaq as a black theater owner, his theater showed the film. But the thing is this. It's important to realize historically we've always had blacks differ on what's the best solution for us as a race. Are you aware of Booker T. Washington?
Me, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uplift the race.
Booker T. Washington.
Didn't
He
agree
was-
with Garvey, did he?
Huh?
He didn't agree with Garvey.
Well,
Garveyism.
Garvey disagreed with Booker T, and he also disagreed with W.E.B. Du Bois. And there became a thing about colorism also, where Garvey, and a lot of people don't know it, but Garvey didn't trust anyone who had
A lighter hue. Yeah.
yes. And so with respect to Booker T, he had what was called the Atlanta Compromise. And at first, it was going to be supported by Du Bois. But then, no, because they started to recognize or see Booker T. Washington as what we call an accommodationist. Okay? A number of blacks, like Booker T., were attacked for this whole thing about gradualism. In other words, let's do this first. Let's get the work part together. Let's improve ourselves as workers first. And little by little, we'll start getting the rights we deserve. Monroe Trotter and W.E.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey said, hell with that. We are human beings. We deserve to have our rights right now. So who do you think was the most popular with the politicians at the time?
Well,
Because
Booker T then.
Huh?
Booker T would have been more
Booker
popular.
T, yeah, because we're talking about Booker T. He had his strongest years from 1890 till his death, the year that Birth of a Nation, 1915. He was recognized as the leader, okay? But Du Bois, he wanted to have this, what they call the Niagara movement. And then it later became the NAACP. In 1909, they formed it. And he formed it with white allies. But the thing is, it's all about, why should we wait for what we were supposed to be born with? And that's human rights. Rights can't no one give you, right? Even Malcolm X said, someone's supposed to give me my rights? So we had that disagreement. You come to the present time, blacks are still fighting. And then you always hear the argument, well, there's no monolithic thought among blacks. There's no monolithic thought among Jews, about amongst anyone. But you see that anytime you'll have, let's say, right here with the starting point for this conversation is LeBron James. They're going to have people who are going to shoot at what he had to say. Or if people are saying that what the Supreme Court did regarding voting, you'll have someone like a Tim Scott, the black senator from South Carolina. He'll come out with some nonsense. From my perspective, and a whole lot of people, it's nonsense. Look at what's his name. He's a black man, Clarence Thomas. But this guy, one of the things before the court is affirmative action. How do you think that's going to turn out?
So they tend to use us against us, right?
Us against us. So just to make the point with that, still happening today. Who was hanging with Kanye before he became Ye? And then he's wearing a shirt, White Lives Matter.
Or Candace Owens.
Candace Owens. Who will they bring up? A lot of times when I'm saying something, then they say, well, they need to bring on Thomas Sowell to shut this fool down. They'll throw his name out there, okay? Larry Elder. You remember he ran for governor in California, okay? But these people, they're never called race hustlers. But when you have blacks who are recognized as activists for black improvement, like a Sharpton, they went after Sharpton heavy.
Mm-hmm.
What's the name has I don't know if you're aware of it. They have a documentary coming out on Sharpton,
A loudmouth.
Loudmouth, and what's the name is producing that?
Mm-hmm. John Legend.
John Legend. But see, that's what they do.
Well, let's go back to Kyrie. I'm sorry, Jason. I mean, this may be news to you as well. I mean, chime in whenever you feel.
I was gonna say something in terms of like monolithic thought for Black people, and in my experience, what I find is it's very difficult for Black people to have monolithic thought on race. Okay, and when I'm referring to Black people, I'm just referring to the diaspora. Yeah, so Black people who are in white majority countries, right? It's very difficult to have monolithic thought on race because we own televisions. Okay, if we didn't have any televisions, we probably would have monolithic thought. But because we have televisions, radios, media devices, it's very difficult to have monolithic thought because our what we see with our own eyes is always being contradicted by what we're being told by the media. So, as Charles has mentioned in previous videos on you know, in terms of film and everything else, we're always told to think a certain way, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, what we're seeing with our own eyes would contradict that thought process. So when we're in a position where we're like, we need to do for ourselves, or we need to do this, or we need to do that, we need to come together. The media is telling us something else. You need to integrate more. You need to be more acceptable. If you do this, then you know like what Booker T was saying. If we just do this first, then we'll be treated better. You know, if we just behave like this, then we'll prove that we can. You know, we can.
Yeah, Jason froze up for a second there. I think it's about knowing your place. Okay,
these times, and that's.
You're
oh right, okay, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying. Yeah, the point I was making was it's difficult because we were being told one thing constantly over and over again. That what media tell us what they want us to be. Although if we was to ignore that and actually go with our gut, it would be taking us somewhere else. That's why there's always that divide in our communities, because you've got some people saying no, this is the right way to do it, but other people are just following the mainstream media in terms of what they're telling us we should do and how we should behave. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think it goes a little deeper than that when it comes to this power paradigm. I think
the power paradigm.
People are so. People want to have power so much that they're willing, like, I guess, and the power paradigm and the double standard, Charles. Like,
we're constantly being manipulated. You know, constantly. Black people are the most manipulated race, you know, on the planet, in my opinion. We're always being pulled one way or the other. Like look what the lady was saying. Our blacks are better than their blacks, right? If that's not manipulation, I don't know what is. What is? You know, in America, over here as well is similar. America's more extreme in terms of politics. How, as a black person in America, you're not allowed to be Republican, to have conservative views, right? You have to be a Democrat. Now, I'm not political at all. Yeah, you know, I don't even vote because I think it's the same. It's the same either way, right? That's just my opinion. But the point I'm making is that as a black person, again, it's manipulation in the sense of that you can't think, oh well, you know what, I've got conservative views, so you know, I should be allowed to have those conservative views, or I've got liberal views, I should be, you know, it's manipulation on the highest level, and we're constantly being pulled from pillar to post.
Right, but yeah,
that's why I see it.
But yeah, but even when it was Kyrie out there by himself being interrogated by the medium before LeBron stepped up and said, "Wait a second, there's a double standard here. You're not treating Jerry Jones the same way that you're treating Kyrie Irving." They the next day after the Kyrie Irving press conference, I don't know if you saw this, Jason, all the sports shows the next day had their basketball analysts speaking out against Kyrie. So it felt kind of weird. There was not one. Stephen A. Smith, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, they all came out and said, "Well, wait, there's a line here that Kyrie has crossed and he needs to be reprimanded."
Yeah, because they all in the morning when they go into work, they all get their script, and then they have to read their lines, yeah, or auto cue, whatever it is, right? They they get given their agenda, okay, or the notes. Okay, this is the theme for the day. This is what's happening today, guys. Okay, right, fair enough. Okay, I read this. I'm totally outraged of what's happening. Yeah, full stop, period, comma. Yeah, as they're reading the thing,
Right.
it's that's how it is.
Pardon my interruption. The thing about this is, initially, the response was anti-Kyrie. You said something that was anti-Semitic. You need to own up to that and apologize. When they couldn't definitively show that what Kyrie did in no way, shape, or form, other than the fact that he put the title on his platform, he never said one way or the other that he was in agreement with the film. He never made a comment about the film. Strange thing happened is that based on the response to Kyrie having put it on his platform, how the reaction was an overreaction, public opinion changed. When public opinion changed and people felt, hey, you know what? They're kind of going overboard with this nonsense. Then suddenly, these same people were offering a different spin than the initial one they gave. You see? So the bottom line is this. There's a lesson to be learned. In other words, I'll tell you, initially, when I heard it, it was a learning lesson for me, because I said, oh, no, come on. Because I have a history of having some kind of interface with some of the information that came out in this film, okay? I challenged it. I challenged it with some of the people, that we have a number of people want to say they're the original children of Israel. They misread the Bible. That's why I always talk about, a lot of these people, they get into the Bible and they know nothing about hermeneutics. And they know nothing about the history of that time. And they misquote the Bible and they read it out of context. And the people that they influence are people who have no idea, no schema, no way of contradicting or even questioning what's being said. Okay, so I challenged all of that, and I was threatened. Then I started putting money. I said, "Okay, prove me wrong, and I'll give you $10,000." This is the God's honest truth. One day I challenged the elders on this nonsense. I'm just going to say.
Okay, we'll bleep that.
Okay. I was approached on the side. And one of the leaders said to me, hey, give us a break. I said, what do you mean? We're just trying to bring these brothers together, and this is the best way we know how. I said, yeah, but you're teaching lies. Case in point, a lot of people don't want to talk about this, all right? Who was more revered and respected as a black leader and angry, no holds barred black leader?
Jason, you want to try?
I'd say Malcolm X.
Malcolm X. Malcolm X, before he died, had a different perspective. They wanted to go after Malcolm. I mean, recently the whole thing is who they say killed Malcolm X. Someone just got a whole lot of money when they were recently declared they weren't the real killers. Are you aware of that?
I did see that.
But here's the point. Malcolm X said he learned that he was being misinformed. A lot of people disrespected him for that. And a lot of people attacked him because they said they didn't think he was right to go after the revered leader of the black Muslims. When Kyrie came out with this, my immediate reaction, oh, here we go, another brother with this whole thing like, we are the original Shemites, okay? That's a whole lesson to be learned, because, we're talking about the sons of Noah, Noah's Ark. That's, first of all, a lot of times I get in trouble. I'm not an atheist, but I'm agnostic. And I'll tell you this, I do not believe in organized religion. All right? I believe in study, but my mentor wasn't John Henry Clark, wasn't Dr. Ben. It was Ivan Van Sertima. And Ivan Van Sertima caught hell from them because he married a white woman. But just to cut to the chase, what I respected about Ivan Van Sertima is that his mentor was Diop. Diop came with facts, was able to back it up. Demonstrable, empirical facts that they tried to shake at the United Nations. Couldn't. The one thing I learned from Van Sertima, he said, what I do in my studies is not in any way, shape, or form an attempt to prove my race is better than any other race. It's not about racial chauvinism. It's about showing that my race is just like any other race that has ever existed on the planet, that we have our good and we have our bad. We have made contributions, and that's what everyone's done. This whole thing about melanin and some of the arguments people want to say, well, the more melanin you got, the more spiritual you are and all that kind of stuff. I'm looking at a show right now. I think it's the best show on TV. I've watched it all. I'm waiting for season 5. You know what that is? Yellowstone.
Yeah, you told me already. You love Yellowstone, but you're a Western fan. Come on.
Yellowstone. There's a key part in Yellowstone where there's Native Americans. It's about racism, but not, some black people feel they're the only people who have faced racism and their own Holocaust. Okay, they try to deny that the Jews. A lot of people want to deny that the Jews were 6 million or more were killed. The point is this: that what happened to the Native Americans here? This one of the characters in Yellowstone. She says she's reading from the journal of Christopher Columbus, where he says, we have come across these people and I showed them my sword and they took it not knowing what it was, and they cut themselves because they weren't aware of how to handle it. They had no idea of it. And Columbus says, these people have no idea of weapons and whatnot. These people are trading everything they have. They're willing to trade everything with us. All I need is 50 men, and I can rule these people and make them slaves. She concluded by saying, this is the mentality of America, the people who founded this country. When they talk about cancel culture, we talk about when they don't want the critical race theory to come out, they've demonized it. They've put out disinformation of what it's all about. When Trump took over this country as president, and we saw what, before he even became president, he attacked the Mexicans. Okay? But we saw what Trump did. Trump did not change America. He knew where America, white extremist America was. He exposed it. And there's so many. I mean, you look at the votes he got, and we got a person talking about this creep, this craven, immoral character who's running against Warnock. Okay? Even this person will say, I know he's a bad candidate, but it's about party over people, not people over party. It's politics over people.
Do you want to look at that clip now? Or?
Huh?
Do you want to look at the clip? Or?
Yeah.
I voted for Herschel. I'm a Republican. I own my own business. That's how I voted that way.
Did you vote for Herschel in the general election too?
Yes.
He's going to have to make up some ground in order to pull off.
Oh, he's going to lose in all probability. Mr. Warnock is a wonderful individual, and I fully expect that he will win.
Jason, Mike, this is the state of affairs we are in right now. Remember when Colin Powell voted for Obama? What did they say about him? Why was he voting for Obama?
Well, he thought he was the best candidate, right?
I'm saying, what was said?
Oh, there you go. Just voting because he's black. Yeah.
Say it, Jason?
Oh.
Just voting because he was black. Just one black guy voting for another guy. Yeah.
Okay. Touche.
You okay? Let me tell you. Jason, you say you don't vote.
No.
And as I said, there are a number of people who say Democrats is one wing, Republicans is the other wing. They're both two wings on the same chicken. I'm not going to put down what you just said, Jason, as far as why you don't vote. But a lot of people will take me to task on this, but I'll tell you this. It begs the question, if voting doesn't mean a thing, then why do you have such an effort at voter suppression? Why is there such a contemptible attempt to keep some people from voting?
I think it makes a difference. Well, from what I understand, I think it makes more of a difference at local level than it does than when you get to what you'd call, like, I suppose, presidential level. I think you can. I think local level politics, you can make more. You see more differences there than what you would see, voting in a particular president.
Here's the thing.
Is there any truth in that? I don't know. Am I right there?
A great deal of truth is in that. But here's the thing. Local level, in economics, we have what is called micro and what?
Macro,
right?
Yeah.
So it's on a micro level, it's very important, yes. But on a macro level, it's very difficult because people have to understand politics. The reason why they don't want to teach you civics They don't want you to understand politics. As one person said, there's no need to agonize. It's important to organize. You have to make your voting count, and then you vote for a person, and then you don't walk away and say it's over. You monitor that person. Everyone's going to have a voting record, the political record. What happens with gerrymandering and whatnot, these guys can say whatever the hell. Marjorie Taylor Greene, why should she be elected? What's she doing? What's she want to do? What are the Republicans going to do when they take over the House? They're going to go after the Democrats for what? Are they going to have the Republicans ever come up as Mitch McConnell when he was when he was the majority leader in the Senate? Did he ever come up with a plan for affordable care, medical?
They never.
They almost overturned what they call, it's not even Obama. They gave that Obama thing, that's to demonize the whole thing. The Affordable Care Act. You ask people, how do you like the Affordable Care Act? I love it, man. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. What do you think about Obamacare? Oh man, that thing is terrible. Okay? This is the rhetoric, the narrative. It's all a trick game. It's tricknology. The whole thing is people think, oh, well, the Democrats know better than Republicans. A lot of people forget. Do you know what blacks were first before they became Democrats? What they were?
Republicans, weren't they? Wasn't Abraham Lincoln a Republican?
Because of Abraham Lincoln, what he was trying to do for black folk. Okay? Even when they set up the NAACP, it was on Lincoln's birthday, February 12th, 1909, if I'm not mistaken. But the whole thing is, it's people have to understand. I was going to say when Trump became president and we saw what he was doing, he was dismissing what? The rhetoric. How did he dismiss the rhetoric? What did he keep saying?
Fake news.
Fake news. You see, so you don't trust the news.
Okay, well, that brings up a good point. I wasn't sure if you wanted to show this last clip with Margot Jackson, but while we're talking about rhetoric and fake news and all that other stuff, we start off by talking about the double standard. If you're just tuning in, we started off by talking about the double standard that exists in cancer culture. You know, how certain ideas or images are allowed or given a pass, like with Jerry Jones. He's not questioned or interrogated. I should use the word the same way Kyrie Irving was interrogated about his tweeting, his tweet habit. But I mean, how does Ye, formerly Kanye, the artist formerly known as Kanye West, fall into this whole thing? Because he's espousing fake news and that there's rhetoric and so forth, but he's jumped all the way onto this anti-Semitism bandwagon, it appears.
That's a question for me?
Yeah.
Okay, what happened is this.
Like, where does he fit into the equation is the specific question.
This is what happened. You take conservative news, they have Candace Owens. Mm-hmm. They have Larry Elder. They have a number of blacks who have come out. And the reason why they go after these blacks, same thing like I said with Herschel Walker. They have these blacks because if they whites say it, you're going to say, oh, you're just saying that you're white. You're anti-black. So they go find a Herman Cain, someone who's going to say what they say. See, because when you have a black say it, oh, see, it's not us. Black people feel the same way. When you see Trump at his rallies, they make sure they have right behind them.
Right. Blacks for Trump.
The weather girls.
The guy holding up the sign, Blacks for Trump. Okay? The thing is this, Kanye, what gave him the biggest height recently? He was hanging with Candace Owens, and they were sporting some shirts that said what?
Yeah, White Lives Matter.
White Lives Matter, right? So right away, okay, great. Because the one thing they want to do is go after this whole thing with Black Lives Matter. And the way they go after Black Lives Matter is you see all the things that were coming out about the people who are running Black Lives Matter, talking about the $1 million and all this. Okay. And I remember when we went to see a film some time ago, the lady was telling us, well, that Black Lives Matter, you know who founded that and all this kind of stuff. There was always something
Sinister.
associated with, huh?
Yeah, always something sinister.
Yeah. It wasn't legit. And so, in other words, when you don't like the message, you go after the messenger.
Right.
Kanye was saying all these things, so they brought him in. Okay, this is we got our nigga.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They were promoting this. He did an interview with Tucker Carlson. Oh, they were singing the praises. Kanye, look at Kanye. He's a genius. He's a this and he's a that. All of a sudden, Kanye went buck wild. I don't know. Maybe his medication is not strong enough or whatever. He went off. Jason, you say this in your book, right? That they go off code, they go off the rails.
Yeah.
He went off the rails, and right now they're hiding everything they ever said positive about him.
Yeah, it's damage control. It's association is assimilation. He got hit with this anti-Semitic thing, and then the next day, Candace Owens not in the picture, but he's hanging out with these neo-Nazi guys.
Well, look at this recent thing. He's with Alex Jones. Alex Jones, this cocksucker.
Watch your mouth.
This is somebody you're gonna go to talk to.
Well, he's running out of outlets.
And he lost. He's got to pay over $1 billion. Now all of a sudden he's filing for bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. This pig. Come on. And then when he goes on there, he's got I think he's got a mask on. And then you could see Alex Jones like saying, "Oh my God, what's going on here?"
Uh-huh. It's like, is he going to take the mask off? Maybe he's been cloned. Are we sure this is the right Kanye?
Oh boy.
I think he was just thinking.
Look at what happened with Trump. He just had dinner with Ye and this guy Fuentes. Mm-hmm. Did they go after Trump? Are they demanding him to put down these two people now?
They have been, but he's refused to.
They haven't gone to Trump. Like, I remember when Obama was running for office, and they did the acid test. The litmus test with Farrakhan. Do you denounce Farrakhan? And he had to say, "Yes, I denounce him." Yeah,
his preacher.
Right. Yeah, that's right. It was his preacher, wasn't it? And Farrakhan later on, wasn't it? He had to denounce his preacher and he had to denounce Farrakhan, right? Whereas with Trump,
guilt by association.
Trump can hang around with Kanye West till the cows come home, and they wouldn't say, "Oh, but he's been saying this, he's been saying this." Whereas if it was the other way around, and there was a black guy hanging out with someone who said some of the things that that Kanye said, which has caused the same kind of level of effect, it's guilty by association. They'd lock him under they'd probably send him to jail, right?
Look how they wanted to demonize Barack just because of his name, Obama. Okay.
Yeah. They tried to associate him with that's right. His middle name was Hussein. They said, "Oh, his name's like Hussein, Saddam Hussein." And he's like, and trying to link him to Saddam Hussein. You're thinking that's just that's insane.
His wife Michelle. Oh man, the pictures they had of her. Oh my gosh. But But the thing is, she wanted to wear her hair natural, and she had to think about, what if I do? What's going to be the consequence of that? When Obama's running and they're talking about, oh, are you going to denounce your preacher and for what he said? Who did Obama run against?
Can't remember. President. First time.
You remember, Mike?
George Bush, you're talking about?
No.
Who was he running? He was going up against
or Hillary? What do you?
No, Mitt, was it Mitt? Was
Mitt
it Romney?
Romney.
I was Romney, yeah.
What was Mitt Romney? What's his religion?
He's a Mormon, wasn't he?
A Mormon. You know what
And
the Mormons had to say about blacks?
Mormons have got about cursing black people being cursed, but he was never once questioned about his Mormonism, was he?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So getting back to the power paradigm, the rhetoric piece, they control the information. And the information they want put out there is to manufacture consent. It's to get program people. You know, they talk about television programming.
Yeah.
It's about putting information that keeps people in formation, going along with the system, the status quo.
I'll tell you something. Just remind me of something, actually, Charles. Right? There's a story. Right? There's a guy who went to like a college reunion. Met some of his old friends from college. Right? There's like 5, 6, 7 of them. And they met up and they were having a conversation about, how they used to think about, there's some thoughts they had back in the day. And he was like, saying, oh, yeah, remember this, remember that. And his college buddies were saying, oh, you can't think like that anymore. We don't think like that. And he said something else. Oh, we don't think like that anymore. He said something else. Oh, yeah, we don't think like that anymore. Right. And after a while, he's thinking, how is it that they're all thinking different than they thought before? Yeah. And they all got to that same conclusion in the same kind of time frame, right? And then he thought, wait a minute, I'm the only one who doesn't have a television set, right? It's always interesting, isn't it? How people come to the same thought process on certain issues at the same time. You ever wonder how that's possible? Yeah, there you go. You come to the same.
Look all around you. This is what you see. You try to talk to people. Some people can't even watch a television program like Yellowstone. Some people may say, I'm not going to watch that Kevin Costner BS. When people go to see a movie, they don't even know how to watch a movie. Okay? Years ago, dialogue was very important. When you, Mike, you're a filmmaker, years ago, we had silent films. Dialogue was very important. The expression on people's faces, that told a lot. But the thing is, the movies they make now is not about raising the consciousness. Television is what it is. It tells you what it is. It's tell a vision. Programming. Tell a vision that we want told and program the people the way we want them programmed.
Or tell lie vision.
Yeah. We got another slide here. The 5 P's.
Well, no, the 5 P's is just an alliterative way of saying what the power paradigm is. It's about the politics, the position, the person, the production, the press.
Okay. So basically, whatever you're exposed to, information you're receiving, there's a P involved,
that's why we are always that's why we're always pissed off.
So I mean, we're doing our best to be objective, but
can I just say one thing? One thing quickly. Just one thing. Do you think? Right, because you said about this cancel culture is nothing new, and you gave some examples of people who've been cancelled historically, over the years, and what they were cancelled for was for going against the mainstream, right? The mainstream narrative. But do you think now that society is so sensitive and the mainstream narrative is so narrow, that it's a lot easier to get cancelled than ever before at any point in history?
Well, the thing we have now that's such a danger is that we have the expedient factor. Information transfer just like that. Okay? And the other thing is the filtering process is non-existent. See, years ago, for example, you got some things on TV that you can watch years ago wouldn't even be on TV because the numbers game has changed. People don't even watch TV now. They DVR or something, they're going to watch it. You don't have the numbers. I don't want to mention certain people, but people who had the biggest show, you look at the numbers that, let's say, the last MASH episode, when I was growing up, The Fugitive, the numbers were enormous. Okay.
Yeah, I Love Lucy.
Radio.
It's like quarter. It was like a quarter of the population, wasn't it? Watching like these shows, literally like a quarter of the population.
I read the history of Amos and Andy. Amos and Andy started in 1926. They started out as Sam and Henry. Then 1929, they changed to Amos and Andy. Freeman Gosden, interesting. Freeman Gosden and Charles Corral. They stole a lot of stuff from black guys, especially one guy named Flournoy Miller, who worked with
Miller
and Lyles. Aubrey Lyles. But the thing is, he was great at language. He taught Mantan Moreland. You ever see them do the what they call the man? I went to see your wife. She was over at no, she wasn't over there. She was at. I had to give her these 2 pills, and you know what the doctor said about it? No, he didn't say that. You know that kind of thing. That was Flournoy Miller taught all of that. But the thing is, Amos and Andy on radio. They said when Amos and Andy came on radio, it was so popular. The toilets would not flush because no one was going to the bathroom, Jason, Mike.
While the show was on.
Right, while the show was on.
Yeah, you could time the commercial breaks. That's when the toilets would flush at the same time.
That's movie going. You know how many numbers it used to be with people going to see the movies?
Right.
Oh, gosh. Big time. So the thing is, to answer your question is, the information we're getting now, anyone, you look at the thing that Musk wants to do, and people saying he doesn't want to put a filter on this thing. This information gets out there. You look at who's been influenced by this misinformation, this information. That's what a lot of people are afraid of. That if you're not going to put checks and balances on this stuff, it poses a threat because these people are using this media to present lies. Look at QAnon. That crap. Okay. So the filtering, years ago, we had like the 3 basic stations in America, Jason. You had CBS, NBC, and ABC. You had Walter Cronkite. People believed in Walter Cronkite. When he gave the news, you said that was fact. That wasn't no BS. But now we got Murdoch when he came over here and set up things because there was supposed to be a check and balance on how many media forms you could own. What happened to that? All that changed.
Reagan changed it.
And that goes to how you can get power. The wealth part is you got the money. Do you know how much money is just spent on this last election? Billions to become a senator? How much money was spent when Biden ran against Trump? Hundreds of billions. When Reagan became president, one of the first things they wanted to do, you know what Reagan did? He attacked the unions. The unions are not as strong as they used to be, but the unions was a strong ally of the progressives, the liberals. and they would send their money to help finance the campaigns. But remember, you don't have any transparency on where this money's coming from. And then they had this famous line, corporations are what?
Human individuals. They can be taught.
Corporations are people too.
Yeah.
It's how they change the game. And when you're in positions of power, you always change the game to benefit you. That's when you're in the occupation, in the seat of power. That's why you want to be in control of politics. You look at politics. How many black senators do we have? How many have we had in the history of elections? Pelosi, when she came, she became the first female Speaker of the House. Women didn't even get the right to vote till 1920. First state to help bring that about was Wyoming. But why didn't they want women to vote? One of the reasons they fought against it, because they didn't want to give married men more power. When they formed this country, it was the elite class, the people with property. You couldn't even vote when they was voting for Washington. Washington was elected unanimously. It wasn't a popular vote. It wasn't the people. The first time they had the people vote, it was with Andrew Jackson. But you had to have property. And when you look at the word property, you got in there proper. Okay? The elite class, there's writing in the original documents of this country where they will tell you what they think about what they call the working class people. They didn't even feel that the working class people had enough intelligence to make the right decisions to govern this world. This is a predatory capitalistic society, and as it wasn't exact words from one of the presidents, but he said, the business of America is business. This is about money. They don't give a damn about people. When you look at the fact that there are plenty of places where people are not getting drinking water, we have other countries that find a way to have health care for everyone. When you're talking about the cost of college, look how they fought against what Biden wanted to do when he wanted to give some relief for student loans. They fought it. It's in the courts now. But they can give people who have enormous amounts of money more tax breaks. That's Reagan, once again, with what they call trickle down. Biden, to his credit, is saying, I want to build wealth for everyone from the bottom up, not from the top down. Top down, these people, when you hear these people talk, when you hear people who call themselves Republicans, when they say, I don't like what Trump did, I don't like this about him, but I like what he did for the economy. And he didn't do a damn thing for the economy. He said he was going to build a wall. I don't want to get off on political tangent, but what I'm saying is this. 2 documents. One document, I'll tell you, a lot of people don't pay enough attention to. I wonder who was the original writer. But what was captured in this document, that's the Willie Lynch letter.
Mm-hmm. We did a piece on that. We'll put it right there for people to find it. Our previous talk on Willie Lynch.
Willie Lynch goes into a lot of what I call the politics of human relations and the fact of how this society, the status quo, maintains itself. It's the oldest strategy in the book, Brother Jason, Brother Mike. You know what that is?
Well, we talked about it. Divide and conquer.
Divide and conquer. Do you know the biggest fear for the white man is the black man.
Mm-hmm.
The way you keep the black man as a non-threatening figure, you have to take away his key partner, his key source of strength. You know what that is?
He's a woman.
Look at what's going on in the world. We just, not too long ago, I think the last time we talked, we were talking about the woman king.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
A lot of people who had issues with that film is because they felt it was another film that bashed the black man.
There was a lot of division between black men and black men and black women in that film.
That's the issue you had with it. You felt that way, okay?
Yeah, it didn't. For me, it didn't bring us together. It just played into the same narrative of keeping us apart, if anything.
Well, the same thing with the voting.
Mm.
If you hear the talk going around, or what hurt Stacey Abrams, or you have a lot of black men say, I'm not voting the way they're voting. And there's always this discussion, the black man against the black woman. That's right out of Willie Lynch.
His playbook.
The other thing that's in Willie Lynch, they talk about the one thing you do to keep a slave, you make that black person, that black slave, male or female, do what? Who are they supposed to revere and love more than anything on the face of this earth?
Their master. Mm. But what I would say though, do you think people are more sensitive now? In terms of what people say, to want to get people cancelled. Do you think people are more sensitive?
Are there? Yeah, I guess my piggyback on that, Jason, would be: is some of the
and people
warranted, or are we lacking a sense of due process? You're talking about we perceive film differently now, and also
like just in terms of in terms of people getting offended. Do people offend too easily? Do people offend too easily? Do people are people just desperate to be offended? Because some of the things that you're seeing people getting cancelled on, like what you spoke about with the with the people back in the day who were getting cancelled and ostracized. That was because obviously it was wrong. Of course it was wrong on their side, but it's like the system had a they had a particular agenda, right? And they did not fit with that agenda, right? Because obviously you had these guys who were saying that the racism they felt was terrible, the way the country was going in terms of the treatment of black people was wrong, and the agenda was no, you can't say that, so we're going to ostracize you, right? Whereas now you're thinking, what is the agenda now? For so many people to be ostracized on so many different types of things, because back then it seemed that there was 2 or 3 things that you couldn't speak about, to be ostracized for. Whereas now it seems that there's probably like maybe 30, 40 things, 50 things, 100 things. It's endless.
Well, let me ask you this, Jason and Charles. We definitely want your answer, but I mean, don't you think also the emergence of social media has been a factor, Jason, in terms of everybody feels they have a voice and they can exercise their power by being negative, by saying, get rid of this person for what they said or they did 20 years ago. Let's stop that. Let's like Time's Up, all these other things, start because there has been a power shift.
I don't know. Do you think that person we saw earlier, was it Jerry Jones?
Mm-hmm.
Something that he did in 1957. Should he be then? That's the thing. Where does it stop? And where does it start?
That was the opening question. You know, if people just
where does it start and where does it start? Where does it stop? Should you just like, oh well, that was a long time ago, so that doesn't count, or should it be, or should you be dealing with just the present?
Well, people are getting canceled left and right for actions that they did 20 years ago, but somehow it slid by on Jerry Jones. And I believe the reason why is because he has a lot of value to a lot of people. He has power. You know, or some of the other people that were thrown aside or cast aside, they were discardable.
Yeah. Well, that's what Charles is saying. If you're in a position, once you're in a certain position, then you can kind of do what you want. It's a bit like, look, you can see that in everyday life, right? Everyday life, right? The guy who doesn't have a job, does a crime, gets caught with some drugs, right? He's going to go to jail, right? If you are the district attorney, right, and you get caught with the same amount of drugs, you're going to get a slap on the wrist, right? Well, you probably wouldn't say anything, but do you know what I mean? Like, you see all the time with people's children, don't you? Like,
who's
with
in a privileged position, who's in a position.
The privileged child goes to rehab, and the child from the project actually does a prison sentence. Yeah.
Right.
So it's
to me, this is how
slightly. Yeah, this is how we understand double standards, how that works. That's nothing new. So it works the same in terms of what comes out of your mouth as well. Yeah, it can either be forgiven and forgotten, or you can be held accountable for it. So it's the same rules that apply in that regard. It's like But
you're saying
have to be. Say again.
But you're saying there's an increase in this, and I'm saying, well, maybe it's because of social media.
The increase. I think the increase in the cancelling is due to all this false outrage. I think there's a lot of people who want to get upset. Again, it's like the political correctness. A lot of people want to get upset about things on other people's behalf. It's something that I find. Right, this is something that the English viewers might be able to relate to this. Maybe even some of our Muslim brothers and sisters might be able to relate to this. But like in England, there was a thing where I don't know if they do it there, like the kids' Christmas play, the nativity play. Yeah. Right. So you have the Christmas play, and over here, there's children who are from different backgrounds. They could be Muslim, Sikh, Hindu, or some other religion. Okay, and then some people who weren't those religions wanted to ban the Christmas plays from the schools because they thought it would offend the children who weren't Christian. So then the media's reporting this kind of stuff, and they're saying, oh yeah, the Christmas plays want to be banned because it offends people, and then people then get upset with the non-Christians. They're like, oh, they want to ban our plays, and they're like, no, we've got no problem with it. We'll let our kids go into the plays. We've got no problem with that. It's just we don't care. Yeah. Right. But other people are getting offended on our behalf, and it's something that you see a lot, where people, and then they want to cancel somebody for which they weren't even offended by.
That brings into play the whole thing with Megyn Kelly, Mike and Jason. One of the earliest discussions of cancel culture is the whole thing where the conservatives were saying that the progressives wanted to cancel this whole idea of Santa Claus being white. They wanted to make him a multicultural person.
Does any black people have a problem with Santa Claus being white? I haven't heard a black person say they want him to be a different color.
Well, we've had issues. We we didn't have issues until our consciousness became aware. I remember when what's his name was so poignant when he pointed up Bobby Dick Gregory, when he says what his mother had to go through to put some things under the tree.
Yeah.
And yet how she's saved and she worked hard. She's putting these gifts on the tree, and who gets all the credit but some white guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, would you have a problem in being white, or would you just tell your kids you bought the presents and it wasn't Santa? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you need to change his color, or do you just
in my household we took the white Santa statue and we crayoned him brown? So
you actually changed his color.
The whole thing about changing Santa's color.
I actually tell my kids where the presents come from.
Okay. But then again, I know what growing up and believing in Santa, it was this mystique to it. I believed in Santa Claus. But what I learned about that is the fact that if I believed in Santa Claus, Mike and Jason,
mm-hmm.
and you couldn't tell me there wasn't a Santa Claus, that is the nature of disinformation and misinformation. You see, there was a conspiracy to make kids believe in Santa Claus. When we talk about conspiracy, it comes from the word conspire. The root is with, spire is the breathe. You breathe the same thing. You conspire with others to create and sustain a lie.
Yeah.
Okay? When he knows what you're doing, he knows if you've been bad or good. He said, oh shit. And how do you know what I want? You see, someone says this is the quality of the personage, and then there are things that come to play that makes you say, this must be real. All you need for a conspiracy to work is a kernel of truth in it. And then when some of that plays out, then people say, that's a conspiracy. That's the truth. See, that's the kind of crap that a lot of people had issues with Kyrie Irving. You know, you want to say you are this bright person, you are raising the consciousness of your mind and whatnot. But as I always say, I learned a long time ago, you got to be careful where you're getting information from, because the easiest thing to do is to replace BS with BS. The nature of information, the nature of knowledge, it's something that I came up with a saying a long time ago. I say, wise makes one wise. WHYS. Why makes a person WISE. You get it? Questions lead to questions. Questions lead to answers, and answers lead to questions. It's never ending. A lot of people do not know how we got religion, how we got philosophy. The root of religion and philosophy is that they deal with questions that cannot be answered. Anyone who'll tell you they're religious, they'll tell you, you have to believe and accept God. You have to have faith. You have to believe. You have to have the faith that what you're learning religiously about a God is the truth. There's no way, shape, or form, it doesn't exist to this very day. No one can prove that Jesus even existed, that Moses existed, that there was a Noah's Ark. And if there was a Noah's Ark, and you look at the measurements according to the Bible, there's no way you could have gotten two of every kind on that damn boat. So
can I just say this, Charles, right? In
Yes,
terms
sir.
of what you're saying, like replacing BS with BS or something like that. Just playing like devil's advocate here, right? Because people might be watching, they might be like thinking this, right? Say, for example, this analogy, right? Say you've got someone who's overweight, right?
Mm-hmm.
They need to lose weight to get in shape because it's going to be detrimental to their health if they stay overweight, right? And then someone comes along and says, drink this special drink, and it will give you the motivation, the energy to train and exercise, right? So they drink this drink, and the person then calls to them and says, right, we're going to go for a run now because you've drank this drink. And they start running, right, around the park, right? And every morning he gives, he drops off 100 bottles of this drink, and he says, yeah, drink one every morning. Right, it'll help you train. And he's drinking this drink every morning, goes for the run. After like a year, 18 months, he's lost all the weight, he's fit, he's got some abs showing or something. Yeah, he's got himself in shape and he's healthy, right? Then the person turns around to him, right? Or he discovers himself that the special drink he was giving him was just water, right? Does that mean it's BS, what the man was telling him?
Yeah, the man was telling him BS. Okay.
But what's the result of that? What's the result of that?
Well, in that particular case, it worked out positively. But there's a case like that in the Bible.
There's cases like that all the time. But the point I was saying, the point I'm making is that
you remember the story of the if I could just touch the hem of his garment? Huh? If I can just touch the hem of his garment, I'll be okay. I'll be all right. That's the belief. See, the whole thing is what that works on is belief, a belief. The belief, you believe something is going to work. That's the key. That's the first key. If he just took that water and didn't do the exercise, what would have been the result?
Well, it would have stayed the same. Yeah.
You see? They do it every day with products they put on the market. For example, this is a fact. You grew up using a certain toothpaste in your household. Right? They have products out there, they say fights dandruff. If they created a product that actually worked, they would go out of business.
Well, I have breaking news for you, gentlemen. Empirical proof that Santa Claus is indeed a black man.
What would you be if you came down the chimney?
It's my black Santa.
You remember that joke?
Well, he said there's no way. Dick Gregory would say there's no way Santa Claus was white because there's no white man coming at 3 o'clock in the morning down my chimney.
No, they used to say,
I had a chimney.
What color would you be if you came down the chimney?
Oh, I got you. Coal black.
Yeah.
Coal black.
Yeah.
I miss your jokes, Charles.
Isn't he originally Turkish anyway?
Here's the thing. It gets back to what's the implication of the ancillary things about this whole discussion. Who was it? Megyn Kelly said, and don't forget, Santa was white and so was Jesus. How does she know that?
How does she know what color Santa Claus is, or how does she know?
How does she know that Jesus was a white man?
She knows it because that's what she's seen in every single photograph and photograph painting.
But for her, but here's the point: when she says it, who challenges it?
Well, all the people she's with believe her on that anyway.
Of course.
Yeah.
See, but if someone, instead of Megyn Kelly, if someone got up there and said Jesus was not white, he was black, that would be the subject of conversation for the next 2 weeks. What's the name? We put on the channel when they had a discussion when Blair Underwood did the Black Jesus thing. He couldn't get anywhere with that movie. They challenged it and everything.
Yeah, he's on Donahue, wasn't he?
Donahue. And what's his name? John Henry Clark said, isn't it interesting? That's when he had the debate. When they came out with the book on the Greeks having stole their information and everything from the blacks.
Mhm.
And they challenged that. See, John Henry Clark said, isn't it interesting whenever someone comes out and says the blacks were the source of this and were the source of that, there's a challenge. They go ballistic. They go crazy.
Mhm.
Okay? So the thing is, I say one of the most racist, if not the racist, what it boggles my mind is, first of all, what the hell was Jesus supposed to be?
Mhm.
Not racially, because the Jewish people are not a race of people.
Mhm.
Well, the
It's
region of the world he came from was on the continent of Africa, to be precise, wasn't it?
Well,
Before they redrew the maps.
okay, that's
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Well, make that definition clear, Charles, because there
Jesus,
is a debate. Some people do consider Jews a race. Some people don't. A lot of people have gotten in trouble. Whoopi Goldberg most recently with this conversation. So be
well,
clear.
first of all, did Hitler consider the Jews a white people?
Not according to his
not
book.
Aryan.
No, he said
They were not
they're
considered
a
Aryan.
race.
He didn't consider them white people. And then the whole thing is, the question was, when did Jews become white? Okay.
Well, I think the thing with Hitler, from what I've understand, is he wanted to make that distinction of them being a different race, so it'd be easier for them to persecute them. Because if
Yes.
the German people believed that they were just the same as them, but just a different religion, it'd be a lot harder to persecute. But if he said they were a different race and convinced everybody they were a different race, it was then easier to persecute them.
Well, here's something no one ever comes up with and discusses. Where did the Germans learn or decide how to treat the Jews?
Where did they learn that?
Yeah. What was their source of inspiration?
Oh, right. Well, Hitler studied, or the Nazis studied, Darwinism and another guy as well, from in terms of genetics and evolution and how certain people are.
Greg Gore.
Well, you had Linnaeus. You think about Linnaeus when they started doing with the plants and whatnot, and you had what they call scientific racism.
Gregor Mendel.
Mendel and all that. You had the scientific racism. But here's the thing. Here's what a lot of white folks don't even want to touch this rail.
Mm-hmm.
The racism, a lot of that racism that was used against the Jews in Germany was patterned after how America treated blacks in America.
Yeah, it was historic. It's from they had 200, 300 years worth of writings on inferiority and the size of people's skulls and
no, but to be fair, there were no concentration camps in the United States.
There weren't no concentration camps in the United States
where people were being murdered at the end of it. Like gas chambers, I should say.
Weren't there?
But the thing is, what they
the United States had concentration camps, internment camps for the Japanese during World War II, but they weren't concentration camps where people were being exterminated.
With the Japanese, that was a temporary thing, because after the bombing, they rounded up the Japanese out of fear.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is the treatment that the black slaves received in this country, and the millions of black slaves that were killed in the diaspora, and how they were treated here in America. Okay, the concentration camps, maybe they didn't do that in America, but the thing is the policies. You could kill a black man and not be brought to trial if you were white. You didn't have to face any punishment. You could do it with impunity.
Right.
Yeah, because the Germans still ended up going to court in the end, didn't they?
There had some Germans that when they studied the policies, the racist policies in America, some felt that we didn't want to bring that here to Germany because it was too extreme.
Mm-hmm.
But America was a model and influence for South Africa as well as Germany. People don't want to talk about that.
Right. And there were American presidents that were pro-Germany.
You talk about concentration camps. How about the contaminated blankets that they gave the Native Americans to kill them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we're on the topic of genocide at this point.
Of course, and how they didn't even want to treat these people when they did the syphilis test. And then the whole thing is this whole thing when you look into they wanted to do with the black women, make it where they couldn't have children.
Mm-hmm.
The medical history of how blacks were treated in this country, all kind of ways, it's on a level of genocide.
Yeah, and it's over a very long time.
Well, go to Flint, Michigan. You know, that problem still hasn't been solved. Mississippi still hasn't been solved with the drinking water. So
not only Flint, Michigan, just look at number one, where they decide how it is. Okay, getting back to politics, people who sit at the positions of power, when they decide to put certain things in certain places, all that pollution, cars going by on the highways.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at what they call the key statistics, people of color, high rates of
lead,
mm-hmm. asthma, and all these things. That's all by design. A lot of people don't even know that anything they do, there's always this getting back to the economics
mm-hmm.
and the politics. Social Security. Now they're thinking about trying to do something with Social Security, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do you know that when they come up with an age factor for Social Security, they look at life expectancy?
Yeah. So,
and you know,
we have this shorter lifespan.
Statistically, you know who don't, the people who don't live the longest are people of color.
Right.
Yeah.
So then let's say if they're dying in their 60s or something, you up the ante at the starting age for when you can receive Social Security, how it locks out a lot of people. And if they do get it, they won't be getting it for long. All of this, no one talks about, but it's in the thinking of these people who run this country. That's why they call it predatory capitalism. The things they do, the decisions they make, first and foremost, they want to make sure that if it impacts anyone negatively, detrimentally, it's going to be people of color.
Okay. All right. So we're almost at the 2-hour mark. So did you want to get into the Margot Jefferson clip, or do you just want to give some final thoughts?
Okay. The thing I wanted to come out of this also is the fact that when we talk about, let's say, the discussion we've had thus far,
mm-hmm.
this kind of information, we know if we look at the numbers, maybe something we'll try to put in to try to bring some people in. But this kind of discussion, I think it's important because I think it's speaking truth to power. But the thing is this: when you look at what gets a lot of views, they use this clickbait and they want to go and they want to say things that they feel have a broader interest by the population.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another thing that holds us back. When, they always have this joke, if you don't want blacks to get any information, or you don't want them to find something, hide it in a what?
Book.
in a book.
Hmm.
The most dangerous oppressed person is one who's seeking knowledge and is seeking to raise his consciousness. See, in an oppressed society, because the rhetoric, the media is controlled by the status quo establishment, they're making sure that the information that the oppressed get is information that makes the oppressed feel that the treatment they get is justified.
Mm-hmm.
It's warranted. And the only way I can escape this is not for me to think of becoming a black person, but to try to be more like a white person, more like the oppressor. So that's why if someone says Black Lives Matter, they're going to attack that. So all lives matter. That's why if we had a movement that says black is beautiful, well, what is this? Everyone's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You see, that's the counter. That's the antithesis. That's the way they want to dilute the message of racial pride. You know, there's a line in Pinky, which was made in 1949. You remember that film, Jason? Pinky? You ever see it?
No.
A black woman who passes for white.
Oh, right. I think you've told me about it. Yeah.
She passes for white, and then the white savior in that film makes her realize, you know what? Why don't you just try to be who you are and like it, and have that sense of, see, what we are taught to internalize this BS. We have self-hatred. When we say we don't like black women don't like black men, that's self-hatred. When they say hurt people,
mm-hmm.
I can't love you if I don't love myself. The first thing they teach us is to hate ourselves.
Hmm.
Okay? The point is this. We need the people who we see in the media, the black people we see in the media. These are not the people who have the most popularity, the biggest names. I call them minstrels, neo-minstrelsy, coonery and buffoonery. A lot of people will take exception to what I'm saying. But when you look at your biggest stars in Hollywood, your biggest stars on TV, for the most part, they're a bunch of clowns.
Okay.
I wanted to watch the basketball game last night. Turned out to be a hellapalooza. My Lakers against the Greek Freak, the Milwaukee Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to watch this. And how do they present it? We got to see the game with Stephen A. Smith, that clown. They have a format on ESPN where he's supposed to be in his living room. His sister fixed all this food for him and whatnot.
Oh, they put him on the screen to talk while the game was on?
Yes. I was peeved off. This is the second time they did it.
Oh, they didn't give you the option? Like on football, they give you the option. You can watch it without.
No. So that spoiled it right there. It was terrible. I don't know who came up, but I'm saying I've seen enough of Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A. Smith, when I think about minstrels, if you know anything about minstrels, you have what they call the coon. And then there's this coon that comes across where they're known for mispronouncing big words because they're trying to put on these airs like they're real educated. They're called the dandy coons. All right. So when you look at these guys, you'll hear like Stephen A. Smith. Well, I'm not going to articulate and bloviate about this thing. I just want you to know one thing that, in my opinion, all this verbosity with what we call the sesquipedalian terms and all this kind of stuff, to me, that's coonery and buffoonery, and that's putting on airs. and then I know sometimes I told my wife I got to be careful because a lot of times when I'm making my point, I know I raise my voice, but sometimes I think I got to put earplugs on. Stephen A. Smith, when he thinks he's making a point, and then the other clown, Shannon Sharp. Well, Skip, Skip. I said, oh my God. And he's repeating the same thing over and over again. Then you look at one of the most popular sports shows on TV. You know what that is?
Not Sports Center or First Day?
That's Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith. I think it's Kenny Smith. He's supposed to tries to come. He's not as popular as Barkley and Shaq.
You know what, Charles?
Yes, sir.
You got to think. Sometimes you have to think from a white person's perspective, right? And if I'm thinking from a white person's perspective, and I'm thinking, who would I be employing? Which black people would I be employing? Which black people would I love the most, right? And for me, it would be the ones who remind me of them good old slave films. Yeah.
Mike,
you're beating us to the punch.
Mike, you got something for Jason?
Why on earth would a black performer put on blackface and demean him or herself?
Look, this is the 19th century. They had limited options. They were expected to.
Why?
Because it made the audiences comfortable.
Comfortable?
Yes,
What does
with
that
that big feeling at ease, that combination of the thrill you get when something is very exotic and distant, and against this backdrop of constant debates about black people, their place in society. Are they human? Are they not human? Do they deserve rights? Do they not? And here are these strange, here is this, in some way, erasing of individuality. Look on the stage. Here are these characters who are somewhere between types, stereotypes, and caricatures. You can be fascinated, you can be excited, but you can always feel superior.
So that's Margot Jefferson. Author.
Yeah, that just sums up exactly what I was thinking. Because when I see someone like Shannon Sharp and Charles Barkley, it's almost like going back in time and watching Songs of the South or something. And you can just see like, the producer or the person who gave him the job, going on some trip down memory lane, reminded him of like when he was a little boy or something, that kind of like magical Negro, working for him. That's almost what it seems. It seems that that's who they'd employ, and seeing it from their point of view, it's thinking, yeah, that's the person I'd probably employ too. If I was them, because it's like a scheme, isn't it? It's how you see us,
Well,
and
that's what they want too. I guess in closing or winding this down, that does bring up a good point. I mean, a lot of the people that get canceled have ties to corporations and corporate money and corporate sponsorship. So it's like I think as we speak, I don't know, by the time people watch this, it may be solved. But another thing that happened this past week was it was a TJ and the woman we have a show called Good Morning America, and it turns out that the two hosts of the show, Good Morning America 3 actually, the two hosts of the show have been having an illicit romance for several months, and they're both happen to be married. So HR went crazy and ABC's gone crazy, and there's a whole discussion of whether or not they should be allowed to keep their jobs because they're violating HR, human resources. And the insider's saying, well, as long as it doesn't affect the ratings, they can continue on with their affairs.
Probably
so
improve the ratings.
It may have improved the ratings, but they're saying that
you said
at the end of the day, as long as it doesn't affect their commerce, they're going to be given a pass. Whereas a lot of the actions that were taken by Kyrie and Ye certainly affected the bottom line on these corporations that were helping to pay them.
This is an interracial couple.
Yes.
She's white.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, he's a black guy.
Yeah, he happens to be black.
But
And who they married to?
One person's married to a lawyer.
No, in terms of what race are the people they married to?
White. I don't know what TJ's spouse is. I was just doing a quick reading of it. But irregardless, they're in a romance. So but she's married to a white man. He's a famous actor or popular actor.
Well,
okay.
The point I was going to also make along this with this fact is to your point, Jason, who they're comfortable with, who we're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the other thing is, I think the first time I keep hearing this thing about staying on code.
Mm-hmm.
That's you, Jace, right?
I often say that. Yeah.
So long as these clowns stay on code
mm-hmm.
and don't get political and don't get critical of certain things, like follow the party line, hey, this is what you can. They know, in other words, they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them because
they're following that code, not the 21 rules code.
Right.
They're following that code. There.
Stephen A gets like 12 million a year, and Shaq, he's close to he's filthy rich. He's got over 500 million. But the thing is, and Barkley, he's still got some good money.
Gambling problem though.
Gambling, yeah. But the thing is this: you can be sure that before they take any issue, they're going to have to know how the wind is blowing. All right.
Yeah.
And then it's like, if you take like LeBron, who we started with, and LeBron brings up something that they're not happy with, then you're going to have LeBron being attacked where Laura Ingraham attacked him.
Mm-hmm.
You're an athlete, and it comes back to how they want us to stay in our place. That's why you always hear this thing. Don't forget you're a nigger. Don't you get uppity.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget your place. And that's what you have to understand, what race is all about. Racism it's a construct, but it's all about hierarchy. Someone's on the top and everyone else, the others, follow. They're on the bottom. That's the hierarchy, hegemony.
And you're jostling those, and the people underneath are all jostling for position. Yeah, but the top position always remains the same.
And the way it's going to remain the same is because these people know the rules. They know their 21 rules.
Yeah.
In other words, if I want to stay on top, maintain this strategy that has always been the most effective strategy of being on top. That's divide and conquer, and then finding a way to stay in control. The politics, the occupation, the wealth, the economics, and the rhetoric. And
that's the thing as well, Charles. Once we see their playbook and know their playbook, then you don't fall for it anymore. The only reason why it works is because we're ignorant is because a lot of us are ignorant to their playbook. Once you're aware of it, it can't work.
What the whole thing is here's the thing. You are not going to extricate yourself from oppression if you don't know or if you don't have a strategy to do so. You see, when the people who helped start America, when they had that revolution, they had some brilliant people like Tom Paine, who put out his books, and the language they had, and they were rallying the people because not everybody was for the revolution. because they knew the revolution was about the rich people. They wanted to protect their property, their money, their bottom line. Okay? But the thing is, you got to have a strategy. And once again, coming back to Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch in that piece also talks about the language. A lot of people don't know. I maintain a lot of people don't know the power of language. Language is what also controls us. And you look at the word control from my trigonology glossary. You know how I break down control?
Tell us.
As the con that we're trolled by. You see? And the thing is this. In the Willie Lynch story, it talks about be careful. That's why they didn't want to teach blacks. They didn't want them to learn how to what?
To read and write.
To read and write. Because if they knew how to read, they see that Bible that they were getting was expurgated, was edited. There were certain things, when you hear the Nat Turner story, they said, you don't read this, you don't read that. You read that part which will make them happy with their lot in life. That they don't have to worry about having a good life here. They'll get that.
We'll get that later.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, the language. But once you know the language, when you know the language, remember when the Black Panthers came out, you know what was unique about the Black Panthers? When they started their program, they looked at the first of all, they said, who's entitled to carry a gun?
Anyone in the state of California could open carry at that time.
The thing is, when they started saying, I have a right to carry a gun, I've read my rights. Something had to change, right? Reagan, California. All of a sudden, who can carry a gun and where you can carry a gun? See, that's where it gets back to, like I say, a lot of people say, well, voting that don't mean this, don't mean that. No, you can vote. You can make incremental change. But the game is you got to stay at it. You look how long they've been trying to overturn Roe versus Wade. Did they give up? Hell no. They didn't give up. Did they like Trump? Look at what Lindsey Graham had to say about Trump when he ran against Trump. Said he was a racist. He was a clown, a buffoon, and he would tear this country apart. But when they saw Trump was going to be the nominee, all that went out the window because it's about, okay, who can get us the office? And once we get that office, we can do what we want to do. Tea Party. You ain't gonna no big tea. But the whole thing is, what is their agenda? What is their goal? And you keep, little by little, you keep going at it. You keep going at it. So now you look at the Supreme Court. This Supreme Court is scary because it's controlled by people who don't even give a damn bit of concern about stare decisis. That it's all about it's activism. Something a lot of them say when they were going up for the position, they're not going to be activist jurists. They're going to rule by what's the rule of law and what's best. They're not going to overturn precedent and all this kind of BS. It's what is the agenda. And the agenda of the person in power is to find out how I can stay in power. Because the main thing that matters to the people who form this country and want to continue to rule this country are people who don't give a damn about people. They care about money.
Okay.
On that note.
Yeah, that about does it. We're at our time anyway. So, I mean, I feel like that's a mic drop, but I mean, what have we learned today? I mean, Jason, we always end it with sort of like a solution-based thing. We brought up a lot of ideas. what can be done next? I mean, one of the things that you mentioned is great. I mean, once light has been exposed to you, then you're not in a position of ignorance anymore. I would argue that a lot of people benefit from being ignorant, or benefit from being coddled, or given privileged behavior. I would argue that the school system, the education system, preaches conformity, and that's and that the reason why shows like this don't get as many views as, say, Housewives or something like that, is because we are challenging the norm. We're not trying to put people to sleep. So so this information is for a very specialized few, but I think the discussion today was great because it falls in line with our mission, which is to help make people smarter.
You have to question everything. If someone's saying something, regardless whether you agree with it or not, you have to ask the question, why are they saying that? You have to look into why they're saying that, then do your own research and try to find out why they're saying that. Now, they might be saying it purely because, they might just be talking out their bottom.
Right. Or they might be
right?
trying to
But you
troll.
can't just dismiss it. You have to try to look at it and find out why they're saying what they're saying.
Mhm.
But and the other thing as well, something Malcolm X said as well, which I'll be my last thing I'll say, is whenever the media are telling you that someone is really good and you need to listen to them and pay attention to them and follow them, be very suspicious of that person. Whenever they're telling you that someone is bad, don't listen to them, dismiss them, don't pay attention to them, and that's someone who maybe you should look into with a little bit more depth.
But I think there's limits to free thinking, quite frankly. And I think it all comes, the root of it is you have to be informed, you have to be open-minded. You just can't, like you say, spout off things without.
You can't get your information from one place. Yeah, can't get your information from one place. Like something which I was doing, right, which was interesting. Like, this war in Ukraine, right? That's going on, right? I'd watch the BBC News, and then I'd watch RT, right? And it was like night and day, right? And obviously the truth lies somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? But you watch BBC and it's one-way traffic. You watch
what's
RT.
RT, Jason?
It's Russian television.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like Al Jazeera, but Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, it's like when you watch Fox News and then you watch CNN.
So if you watch the coverage of what's happening in Ukraine, RT, the Russians are winning.
Well, they're put it this way. I'll just say this, right? So I don't want to offend anybody, but you remember there's that thing about there was the bomb that blew up in Poland, right? Did you hear about that? Where a missile was launched incorrectly?
And what's the name said it wasn't the Ukrainians.
Yeah, right. I watched it on RT. RT gave the correct information straight off the back, right? Right. On that, and then the BBC was a bit slow to find out that information, and then eventually, I think it was someone made a statement, didn't they, to say that it was a Ukrainian missile that was shot, but they tried to shoot down another missile, and then it misdirected, then went into Poland. Right. Whereas RT was explaining it very, very different from the start. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but but that's like an example. But it's not. It's a case of winning and losing. I think it's just a case of
somewhere the truth lies in the middle.
It lies somewhere in between. You mean lies somewhere in between?
Yeah, and we appreciate you, Charles. Thanks for making this presentation for us.
Thanks for joining in. Yes.
And if you watch this far, we do have to pass a hat around. I'm not taking my hat off, Charles, but we're going to pass a hat. So any donations that come through in this hour are going to go to Charles Woods, to help preserve his collection. So please, make sure that you follow our Cash App, our PayPal. The channel's been demonetized, so normally we would not be in a position to, I guess, I hate to use the word beg, but to ask for your support, especially in this time of year. But we have to pass the hat and thank Charles for his wisdom, his knowledge, his experience, and his insight. So, please donate.
Absolutely, I'll second that. Do what you can.
And I appreciate those who sent. But the other thing is, I don't want to say anything about what project we're working on now, but we're working on a project that is very close to my heart, and a lot of it, or the premise, is based on some of the things I discussed tonight, and it's a project that I've always wanted to do, and this helps me getting the materials and things like that, because one of the things I've always wanted to do, and since we've been working together on these projects, Mike, someone gave it a title, video essays. So where the book format has taken a while, through these projects, a lot of where my head is at, what I've come to, how I've come to view film, comes out in these pieces we've done. And I just want to say thanks to you, Mike, for your expertise, and you're putting up with me, but collectively we've had some success with what we've done so far, and I appreciate all those who voted and felt that what we did was deserving of some kind of recognition.
Okay, amen to that. All right, is there anything that I missed? Anything you want to cover before I stop recording, or?
Well, I just want to say in closing, I think it's important that people realize that one of the things that I always say now that I've come to learn is that the media, as it is controlled by the establishment, the mainstream media, it's all about putting out information to keep us in formation. It's all about creating content that makes us feel content with this situation. And the only way we're going to find a way to be in a position to liberate ourselves and be the masters of our own destiny is that we have to learn how to really decode and deconstruct the BS.
Hey, so that's the show. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you again soon. Peace and blessings.